Hi, Ant back here again for yet another screencast. So, in our last screencast, we looked at how to bounce instrument tracks to audio. On this one, what I'm going to do is now show you how we use effects, sends, and returns, because again, this is part of your assignment that you're going to be doing, so you need to revise this. So, when we're mixing, ordinarily, we don't want to have effects like delay and reverb sitting as inserts on audio tracks. The reason for this primarily is because you will just bring the computer down with excessive CPU load. Basically, reverbs in particular use a lot of CPU. The other thing is that in terms of creating a space with reverb, which is what you normally want to do with it, really, if you want it to sound as if the music is being performed in a space, you're probably only going to want one space. You don't want to pile different spaces up on top of each other. It can be very sort of spatially quite confusing. And also, this just gives us more control over everything, okay? So I'm very quickly going to run you through how we do this. So we've got 3 audio tracks here, which we've taken from our instruments from the last screencast. And what I'm going to do is make a reverb and a delay, send and return, okay? So if I pop to the mixer, so this is our sends here, right? So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to make 2 sends on each track, okay? And I need to use buses to send to the reverb and delay, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hold down Alt and click and select bus 7 and 8 on that first slot, and because I held down Alt, it puts it on all the tracks, okay? Then on the second one, I'm going to hold down Alt, click bus 9 and 10, okay? Now, when you start using sends like this, you see this little fader here pops up, and this is your send, okay? And whichever one you select, that is what's in that fader, okay? Now, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to rename these so it's easier to keep track of what they're for. So I'll right-click there, rename, and so I'm going to call bus 7 and 8 reverb, and then bus 9 and 10 I'm going to call delay, okay? So now that's our sends, but we need returns because we need the audio to return back into our mix. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 2 stereo aux inputs, okay? And another one. There we go. I'm just going to move that. And then that first one I'm going to call reverb. And the second one I'm going to call delay. Okay. Just let me tweak screencaster here for a second. There we go. Right, so now these are my returns. So I need to have a reverb and a delay plugin on each of them. So I'm going to go up here on the reverb. Let's select reverb, air reverb. And then on the second one, I'm going to go delay, and I'm going to select air dynamic delay. Okay, so these are our 2 plugins. Now, the first thing we have to check is that when we use a reverb or delay or any kind of plugin on a return like this, we need to make sure that the signal is 100% wet. So when we talk about wet and dry, wet means the signal pass through the effects, okay? Dry is just the dry signal that feeds the effect, which is the same as our audio track. So obviously we don't want any dry signal getting through because we want a mix of the dry signal from the audio track itself and the wet signal from the return, okay? So air reverb, the mix is 100%, that's fine because that means 100% wet. And then here, this is 50%, so I'm going to take that to 100%, okay? Now, the final thing we need to do in terms of routing is select the inputs for these returns. So we've got reverb and delay there, so bus, reverb. So now the input of that one is reverb, and then that one, the input is delay, okay? So now, if I send anything from these sends, it will come to these tracks and go through these effects. So let's just listen to the drums first. So I've selected the reverb send there. I'm going to use a different setting. Okay. I'm going to use a bit of reverb on the arpeggio as well. I'm going to try a bit of delay as well. Okay, so you can hear there, we've got our effects running live. So we've got one reverb that we can use on as many tracks as we want because we just send it from these sends here. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Now, let's just mute these second two tracks and listen to the drums again. Now listen what happens when I solo this track. See, we can't hear the reverb anymore. That's because when you solo a track in Pro Tools, you see the other tracks actually mute. So, to stop that, what we need to do is solo safe these two returns, and you would ordinarily do that on any effects returns and also buses where you mix all the drums down. You would solo safe them as well, so you could solo individual tracks and still hear them. And we do that by holding down Command and clicking on the solo, and that grays it out. So now, if I solo, see, we can still hear the reverb when I solo. Okay, so I hope that's been useful for you, and I'll be back soon with another screencast. Thank you.